You ever have one of those nights? It's late, you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and you're doing that mental math that just doesn't quite add up. You feel like you did everything right. You went to school, got the job, you even got the promotion, but you're still feeling that constant low-level stress about money. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not just a you problem, it's a trap problem, and we're gonna break it all down.
In this quote right here, man, it just hits the nail on the head. This is the core idea we're exploring today. It's not some single, dramatic movie plot mistake that gets you. Nope. It's the slow, quiet bleed from a dozen little choices that feel completely normal. Because, well, everyone else is making them too.
So let's start there, with those small leaks. These are the everyday spending habits that feel so harmless in the moment, but when you add them all up, they create this powerful undercurrent that's silently pulling your wealth out to sea. First up, and honestly, probably the most dangerous trap of all, is lifestyle creep. You know how this goes. You get a raise, so you get a slightly nicer car, a better apartment. You start buying the fancy coffee every day. It feels like you've earned it, right? But what's really going on? A staggering 36% of people who make over $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because of this right here. Okay, so let's make this real. Picture it. You kill it at work and you land a well-deserved $15,000 raise. Awesome. The normal, totally expected thing to do is to let that money just get absorbed into your daily life. That breaks down to an extra $1,250 a month. Now, that could easily go towards a bigger car payment, more dinners out, a fancier vacation, or it could go somewhere else entirely. And this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. This is the opportunity cost. If you had just taken that extra money and invested it instead of spending it, over 25 years, it could have grown to over $1 million. $1 million! That is the true price of letting your lifestyle creep up with your income. Okay, now this one's fascinating because it shows how bad we are at tracking our own habits. We think we're spending about $86 a month on subscriptions, but the reality? It's more than double that at $219. We're talking forgotten free trials, streaming services we barely use, all quietly siphoning hundreds of dollars out of our accounts every single month. And then, of course, there's the emotional spending. That little dopamine hit you get from an unplanned Amazon purchase, yeah, that costs the average person around $280 every single month. It kind of mimics the feeling of connection or reward, but all it leaves you with is more stuff you probably didn't need and a credit card bill you definitely didn't plan for. So we've covered the small leaks. Now let's move on to the big gaping holes. These are the major debt-fueled decisions that can lock you into a financial path for years, and sometimes for decades. Just take a look at the modern car payment. The average is a jaw-dropping $772 a month. The loans stretch for nearly 6 years. But here's the real trap. A quarter of the people who trade in their cars are underwater, which means they owe more on the car than it's actually worth. So what do? They roll that negative balance into the next loan, digging the hole even deeper and guaranteeing they never, ever escape the cycle of car payments. This is so crucial to understand. That minimum payment on your credit card statement, it is not your friend. It's not a helpful suggestion. It is a carefully designed psychological anchor. In fact, studies have shown that when that little number is removed from the bill, people pay 70% more on their own. The bank's entire business model depends on you paying that tiny amount for the next 2 decades. And the exact same psychology is at play with the housing trap. The bank sends you a letter telling you how much house you can afford. But that's not a financial plan for you. It's a risk assessment for them. It's the absolute maximum amount of debt they think they can load you up with before you default. They never mention the 15 grand in hidden annual costs for things like maintenance, taxes, and repairs that are, believe me, gonna happen. All right, this brings us to a really tricky category. The traps that happen when money is actually coming in. To show you what I mean, let's look at a hypothetical household. We'll call them the Garcias. And by all accounts, they are doing everything quote-unquote right. So the Garcias have a great combined income, but after taxes, what they actually bring home is $6,800 a month. And then the normal costs start rolling in. The mortgage they were approved for, 2 car payments, student loans, and oh my gosh, daycare. All of a sudden, their fixed costs are over $7,000, which leaves them here. Negative $350. And that is before they've bought a single cup of coffee, a birthday gift for a friend, or done anything remotely fun. See, this isn't a story about being bad with money.
It's a story about how completely normal fixed costs can swallow a healthy income whole.
This is what they call the two-income trap, and it is so sneaky. That second salary of $50,000 looks amazing on paper, but look what happens. After taxes, you're down to $32K. After daycare, you're at $19K. After other costs of just going to work, you're down to $13K. The actual net contribution is often only around $10,000. But now, your entire family's financial structure depends on two people working, which makes you incredibly fragile.
Another trap comes from advice that sounds good, but is actually deeply flawed, like whole life insurance. I mean, just look at this comparison. For the same death benefit, the cost is 10 times higher than simple term life insurance. Now, if you just bought the cheaper policy and invested the difference, you could end up with $1 million compared to just over $100,000 in the whole life policy's cash value. It's not even close. Okay, for our last section, we have to talk about the sneakiest traps of all, the ones that live inside our heads. They're driven by psychology, social pressure, and all the things we think we should be doing with our money. This number right here is the root cause of so much financial pain. 59% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency with their savings. Think about what that really means. It means a flat tire is a crisis. A surprise medical bill becomes high-interest credit card debt. It turns every small problem into a much bigger, much more expensive problem. And this right here, this shows the silent, devastating damage of procrastination, the I'll start saving later mindset. If you delay starting your retirement savings by just 1 decade, investing the exact same amount of money each month, it can cost you more than half of your potential wealth. Compound interest is the most powerful force in finance, but it needs one thing to work its magic: time. We also fall into the trap of keeping up with the Joneses. But here's the real secret. Most of the people you're trying to keep up with are just financing an appearance of wealth. They're posting the picture from the fancy resort, but they're not posting the credit card statement that paid for it. This leads us to chase exciting, fast wins, like jumping on the latest meme stock, instead of building slow, boring, actual wealth. The stories are exciting, but the reality is that 90% of day traders lose money. Meanwhile, the simple, unsexy index fund just keeps on working, turning money into more money, decade after decade. It doesn't make for a good story at a party, but it makes for a fantastic retirement. So I think the whole point of this comes down to one thing. We have to completely redefine what normal means. If normal means being one of the 62% of people living paycheck to paycheck, then normal is the trap. The goal should never be to be normal. The goal is to be financially secure, to be free. You know, the people who actually escape these traps, they aren't financial wizards. They're just people who consciously, deliberately choose not to do the normal things. They choose to build a life of options, not a life of payments. So as we wrap this up, the real question isn't just about spotting the traps. It's about looking at your own life and asking, which one of these is my story? And more importantly, where does my new story begin?